Excuse my hair, it's a little bit messy today. But it's interesting how memories come up, in your Facebook news feed. And luckily, I didn't have too much going on in the beginning of Facebook, so I don't have any weird memories that I don't want to remember come through. Because I know people have lived a lot of life through Facebook, and memories come up, and they don't want to be reminded of their memories. But every single memory that comes up for me has been such a welcome addition to my current state of being. So it just kind of reminds me of where I came from and then where I'm going. And so that memory of me coming out of the courthouse for my first court case regarding the whole Jilly Juice thing was definitely setting the stage for the battles that were to be presented to me in the future. I didn't know what they were, because how do you know? You can't foretell the future. But that no fear of just waging that war. And if you're going to start a war, you better be able to see it through and win it. Doesn't mean you're always going to win, okay? Because I had no idea if I was going to win or not. All I knew was I was willing to go and fight the battles. And that's the thing about the whole JJ protocol, is you're willing to fight the battles within you. And so, metaphorically speaking, court cases and the court system is like asking for a mediator to go and mediate and see whether or not your feelings and your thoughts are, legally appropriate. And so then you realize that the court system is not about feelings or thoughts or what you think is correct. It's about intent and purpose, and whether or not someone broke the law. And does this person owe you money, or does that person owe you money? And that's really what the court system is about. And so in the beginning of the whole JJ protocol, it was all about the feelings. But, let's say that person, so the whole thing with that court case was the fact that I was suing an old publisher for a lot of stuff, and I wanted to get the rest of my money back. And of course, there's a lot of stuff that went on along with that, but she never showed up. Okay, so I won by default. Winning by default is still winning. It's not like you really had to go in battle. But if you saw all of my documents that I submitted into evidence, you would see that I was actually adequately prepared. Whether or not I was going to win or not, if she actually showed up, would be a whole different story. And I can look back on it now and say, I probably would not have won if she had showed up. If she had showed up and she really had a good case and she knew what she was talking about, the judge probably could have ruled in her favor, because we entered into a contract where I, committed myself to something, but then I wasn't happy with the services. But the services that were laid out weren't exactly itemized with by whens, and so it was very left up to interpretation. And so the judge would have probably said, just, you're not going to get your money back, and you can't counter sue for this, and now you're at a equilibrium. Just part ways and just call it what it is. That's my guess what would have happened. But it still came out the same way. Even though I won by default, I still haven't got my money. She hasn't gotten any countersuit, whatever. And so we're still at an impasse, and that's fine. I mean, I don't need the $3,000 I got from her. I mean, all that experience was worth it. I paid for a major experience that I, would have never had if I hadn't done what I've done. So anyway, but that kind of says a lot about just people who go and fight these battles and they're still alive, okay? Well, you won by default. If you survive chemo, you survive cancer, you survive all the different diagnosable conditions because of the remedies on the market, whether it's a legal remedy or it's a remedy in the holistic allopathic, you won by default. You didn't fight the battle. You won by default, but it's still a little win, right? But is it a win that really makes a difference? That's going to really give you the arsenal you'll need for the future? Because I've been to another court case that I didn't really talk about before. And now I'm not going to go into great detail because I'm going to leave those sleeping dogs, let them lie. But I did go out of state because someone wanted to present a case against me. And I knew that I had it in the bag because But still, I didn't know I had it in the bag. I still paid the $300 to go travel out of state to that other city, to that other state. And I had all the evidence and the paperwork and everything to support my side of it with a countersuit, which I couldn't really countersue. But I defended my name. That person didn't show up either. So I won by default, but I actually won because that I don't have any judgment of any type of thing against me in any other state as far as any type of just a judgment, whatever it is. Okay, and that's as far as I'm going to go with that. But that's the thing is if you don't show up, how do you know if you're going to freaking win? See, that's the thing. When you die, you're not showing up to the battles. At some point, the battles become easier as you keep waging those wars that you know you're going to win. So every war that I waged, I didn't know if I was going to win, but I was willing to get out there and wage that war. And so I won. Okay. And so, that right there in of itself tells you what you're made of if you're willing to go out there and fight the wars. But they have to be wars that are worth fighting. You got to choose your battles. Some battles are not worth fighting. And so now that I'm looking back on the last however many years and all the battles that I've waged and I've won other battles, did I really win, or is I just decided, this is not worth the battle, it's not worth the fight? It still saved me so much when I stopped fighting. It saved me so much energy trying to spin my wheels and legislate morals onto others. Now I just walk away from any kind of war that's out there because there's no reason to. I have a war within me that I fight and I win. And I've been defending myself within my body because these viruses are bringing up so much heat. Oh my God. Come on, sugar. Oh my God. And so really, when you think about it, the wars are in here. They're not out there. They really are not out there. The wars are in here. But until you know that the wars are inside, you're going to wage the war out there. And that's, I guess, really the crux of this, is that the justice system gives people an opportunity to figure out, how to fight the wars within themselves once they understand what they're made of to fight the wars out there. And so not being afraid of doing your research, not being afraid of just telling your story. And that's why my first book was released without me knowing it. It was the fact that all my trolls, bless their heart, and I mean that, bless their heart, they figured out how to get my story out there by releasing my first book. And so then it's out there, and they use the court system to do that. So in a lot of ways, the court system and my trolls catapulted me out there. Whether or not they agreed with my information, whether or not my writing was like super, it wasn't. But it was the beginning. And it was the beginning where I didn't care if I looked like an ass. I didn't care if I looked like I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I didn't care if what I looked like. All I cared was that I knew I was embarking on a journey that was not going to end. And these were the little battles along the way, the little skirmishes along the way, that you show up for those skirmishes. And the other ladies didn't show up. They didn't show up. Because I don't know why they didn't show up. They didn't show up. And so, and I'm not saying that they were a coward. No, I think that maybe it was easier to wage the wars on their end, thinking that they were going to win because they thought that they had the mainstream media and the power of public opinion behind them. But public opinion does not hold up in court. It all comes down to intent and contractual obligations and whether or not people upheld our contractual obligations. And so I learned a lot within the last 10 years about the court system, about myself when it comes to fighting wars. And I will spend every expense to defend my name. I mean, seriously, I will spare no expense to defend my name and to also bring forth a case against anyone that truly is trying to hurt me. But no one out there is truly trying to hurt me. Okay, I figured that out now. It's the fact that's what I thought. I didn't have enough information at the time to be able to battle some of these wars, so I used the justice system to give me that little crutch. And well, it didn't always pan out. So, but that's the thing, is that if you're willing to bring forth battles, then you got to see it through. And that's the whole thing with the JJ mentality, okay? Is that you bring forth a battle within and you have to see it through. Come on, sugar. All right, I don't know, my dog's doing whatever. But anyways, I'm kind of like a little bit all over the place. But I wanted to bring out that memory because it was the beginning of it all. It was the major beginning of it all. And when the Ohio Attorney General wanted me to write out my manifesto, that really got me into the writing portion of it. Yeah, I wanted to write a book in the beginning, but I really just started from scratch. Like it's pretty cool that you got to see the growth process from the beginning. Those of you who have been around since the beginning, maybe you saw my first book, not the one that was published that came out in 2018, but the one that came out in 2018 that was the first book prior to that release, the actual official release. And then now you're seeing me using different mediums to help me write, but then I'm also speaking in a different way. So if you watch my old videos, if you're a friend of my Facebook or not, a lot of my videos are public. So if you go to my Facebook and look at all my videos, you see all my public videos. You go all the way to the beginning and you look at the ones that I've made like yesterday, you'll see a marked difference in the organization of my thoughts, the way I speak, and what I'm covering, and the amount of content I've been covering and making the connections with. And then you'll see how effective the JJ protocol is. Yes, it's going to bring about a war within you, but this is a war that you can win because you have the food supply, you understand pain, and you realize viruses are not the enemy. And so once you realize all of that, then there's no reason for you to go out there and fight all these battles that you're not going to win. You can't fight against the government. You can't fight against someone else that thinks opposite of you. What are you going to do? You're going to try to force them into your way of thinking? I've tried that before. It doesn't work, So then you realize the battle is within, and then your ability to convey information in a very organized form, in a very logical form, is going to win above all feelings and opinions and, people's assumptions. And then as people still don't want to, believe you and whatever, then you just block, delete, and you don't promote that energy. That's the thing about the JJ protocol, is you don't have to deal with all the bullshit out there. You pick and choose who you want in your circle, in your circles of influence. And so you don't have to go and legislate morals and try to be an activist and legislate stuff to other people who don't have the equipment to deal with the things in society. So they have to turn to modern medicine and allopathic and holistic medicine. And they'll have their winning by default. See, when someone gets a vector and they're still alive, they won by default. When someone doesn't get a vector and they're still alive, they won by default. When someone gets chemotherapy and they get cannabis and they're doing all their different holistic and allopathic remedies and surgeries, they won by default. But they were not adequately prepared, really, to deal with the battles out there. So they're always going to win by default until there's no more default anymore. Now they just won't win anymore because they were never prepared. They were always winning by default. But I have won. I have won. Even though the court system allowed me to win by default, that wasn't the end. It was when I didn't have to bring things to court, where I learned how to speak about my information from a substantiated platform of physics, of law, of biology, of things that are substantiated by PhDs in our society, by academia. I didn't need the court system to tell who is right and who is wrong, because they even have their own biases. Obviously, because justice is a perception. Justice is relative. You know what's funny? Jerry Springer sent me sent me a letter in my P.O. box when I had one, and asked me if I wanted to go to use his court with the other person I was going to go against. And I'm like, Dr. Phil is one thing, but if I were to go on to Jerry Springer's, court or whatever, because he has his own show court, I would have not only made a mockery, but I would have insulted all of you guys that are doing the JJ mentality. So be thankful that I did the Dr. Phil show because that kind of gave me a little bit of prestige, tiny bit, very minimal, tiny bit. But if I were to go on to Jerry Springer show and bring that court case against that person, the Jerry Springer show, oh my God, I knew when to stop. Okay, I'm not trying to win at all cost here. I had an issue that I wanted to get dealt. I didn't know where else to turn, so I thought the court system was the best thing, and it was because it built my character up, and I fought for that default. But, at some point, you just got to stop with trying to bring about justice against people or stop trying to legislate morals against other people and start dealing with your own battles. And that's ultimately where this whole transmission is coming from, is the fact that I needed the court system. You needed the holistic allopathic world to kind of help you figure out stuff while you're trying to figure out your own battles. And eventually you're not going to need the court system or the holistic or the allopathic world to help you out because you now are armed correctly to deal with your own battles without bringing in outside sources like the court system, like a doctor, nurse, or an osteopath or a holistic person. Because you understand viruses, you understand pain, and you have all the food in the food supply. And that's all you need. That's it. All right. Have a good Sunday. Bye.